Well, one more interview before we end Morning Live. Now, like so many events this year, the annual National Book Week will also be celebrated online. And Book Week, of course, encourages indigenous languages by holding reading festivals across the country. And going online means that South Africans all over the country will be able to access some of the content that is usually enjoyed at the reading festival. So to tell us more, I'm joined by Elitha van der Sandt, who is the CEO of the South African Book Development Council. Thanks so much for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, and thanks for having us, and happy National Book Week to everyone throughout the country and to ourselves as well.
Well, thank you so much. And of course, Book Week, now a decade old, Elitha. What has it done, though, to improve people's reading enjoyability and also reading books in indigenous languages specifically?
So we're celebrating our 11th year, and we're online this year. What we've seen, we've tracked reading, is that from 2006, and the next survey was done in 2016, there has been an increase of 1.1 million book readers. But beyond that, what we're also starting to see is that South Africa is starting to come alive in terms of its literature, and in terms of the interest that's there in book reading. And so we definitely think, by consistently speaking over the years about books and reading, that we are having an impact in bringing the importance of reading to the consciousness of our country.
And as you say, over the decades, one of the issues has been, of course, getting more people to write in our indigenous languages. How's that project gone?
Okay, so what we found is that it wasn't as simple as writing and producing the content. What our study in 2016 showed us was that 64% of South Africans prefer to read in English, and this was across the indigenous languages as well. So one of the things, and this is why we do indigenous language reading festivals throughout the country during National Book Week, is that we needed to promote the indigenous languages. And one of the ways in which we do that, and it's a very foundational thing and quite basic, is to do storytelling in the indigenous languages, so that we reintroduce, reignite, just allow people to get back into the languages and into their love of the languages. And so very important to promote the language as you are promoting reading and writing in indigenous languages.
And if you have this information at hand as well, as per that study, how's the uptake? Are people actually buying books more so that are written in indigenous languages, Elitha?
Absolutely. As I told you, we see an awakening in South Africa with regard to books, specifically children's literature. And so we have seen an increase in demand in indigenous language children's books. We before it wouldn't sell, we're seeing that there's quite a hunger for it now. And so we think that the efforts, not just our efforts collectively, because we call the whole country to be promoting reading and indigenous languages, we've seen that there's been an increased demand in indigenous language children's literature, as I said. And even this year during the lockdown, one of the booksellers that we're working with has recorded an increase in sales where many others have seen a decrease. They've seen an increase in sales because they had the indigenous language content available. And so we're very positive about where the country is going to in terms of its consumption of indigenous languages.
And Elitha, how are the books and the authors, of course, selected for a National Book Week?
So very carefully, this year we have a National Book Week activity book, and it's activities that children and adults can do, which includes mazes, crossword puzzles, connect the dots, finding Fundabala in a very busy space, those kind of things. And it's across 12 languages that the book is in. But generally what we do is we put out a call to publishers to submit books to us. We then have a look at it in terms of whether the content is appropriate and whether the book is accessible in terms of the writing style. So we look at a very simple language and those kind of things when we select the books. And we do this because we've had, you won't believe this, we've had 86 indigenous language reading festivals over the past 10 years. And so we've really gathered a lot of information and interacted with various communities, which allow us to see what is the kind of content that they like. And then we feed that back into our industry. We feed that back into our workshops with SMMEs, because we also work with SMME workshops through our South African Book Fair platform. And so there's just a continuous engagement around what's happening on the ground and how the industry responds to what's happening on the ground. And we see that gap between industry and the population starting to close as we're doing National Book Week and other interventions.
And how exactly will National Book Week work online? Can you just explain to us how people may access it? Because we also understand that Book Week is collaborating with the SABC. So please talk to us about all of that.
Absolutely. The SABC has been one of our long-standing partners. In terms of content, so we do various activities during National Book Week. Activities, we can't just tell people, here's a book, read it. We have to get our nation and specifically communities interested in storytelling, in stories, interested in words, interested in what words can do and how you can play with words. And so those activities that we would normally do in the Indigenous Language Reading Festivals, we are making it available online now. So there's storytelling in all the languages. We have puppet shows, so it's stories through puppets. We also, for example, have some puppet making, so we can show mothers, caregivers, teachers, librarians, how to make puppets and do simple storytelling with puppets. And all of that is available on the National Book Week Facebook page, which is National Book Week SA, as well as on our YouTube channel, which is SA Book Development Council. And there you'll find at 11 o'clock every day, we'll have storytelling and some other activities, and at 3 o'clock as well, which is live. And there'll also be on-demand content available in various languages and various activities, as I had said.
Well, Elitha, certainly looking forward to that. Thank you so much, Elitha van der Sandt, the CEO of the South African Book Development Council, talking to us about National Book Week, which will be celebrated online this year. And absolutely beautiful to hear that uptake in indigenous language books, and people have been talking about this, calling for this for the longest time. And as Elitha says, there is now, as we've seen, especially over this lockdown period, much greater demand from parents as well for books that are written in indigenous languages. So good note to leave that one on. Let's just take a